Hello everyone and welcome to another video on the Angular 8 shopping cart project. So today, as you know, we would be going into getting the API integrated for the cart portion of our shopping cart. So the products API is already there. It's the cart API that we have to get integrated. So let's first see what we have with us and then let's move forward. Let me open up my project and also run the JSON server. Opening the project in the command line. So while this runs or while this serves, we'll just see what we have. So as of now, the project structure goes like this. We have a components folder in which there is a shopping cart directory, and this is indeed a component. This is the one that we are bothered about, out of which there are two places where we'll be solely focusing on today. One is the product item component, where we call the add to cart functionality, or the add to cart button is clicked there, and the cart component.ts, where the items would be loaded in future. Also, you can see that there is a model that is created, that is product.ts, which represents one product item. And that also tells you that because we want to implement the cart API, there would be another model which will be representing the cart item as well. And inside the services, there is a product service. So obviously there will be a cart service as well, because we want to get the cart API integrated. Now, let's first see what we have as far as product service is concerned. There is an API URL constant. And in the last video, I promised that this would be taken to a better place. So we would take this constant to a better place. Now, there is an environment.ts file available. People go for this environment.ts file most of the time, but what I prefer here is that there should be a separate configuration file in which this API URL is located, and based on the environment we can modify what API URL we would be going for. So let's create the config first. I would go for a new folder and I'll call it config. And the whole idea is to store different types of configurations in this particular config folder. One of the config that we are going to store is API related. So I'll name it api.ts, the file name, in which I'd import the environment variable. So basically import environment. And what we are referring to is this constant environment. So environment from src environments environment. All right. And inside the config, we would like to go for export const, and we'd go for the base URL of the API. So base URL is equal to, we'll check if environment dot production, if it is a production environment, then we would go for a production URL. Maybe it could be like https :/API dot, and there's no URL like this, by the way. Shopping, I'm just keeping it as a placeholder. That could be the base URL. And if it is a development environment, which means our current environment, it'll be http :/localhost 3000. So here we know that we would have this base URL to be localhost 3000 because the environment production in the environment.ts is false. So this is what I feel we can use as a configuration setting rather than the environment file right away, because this gives us a better way to manage things where different configuration settings are stored in different files. API related configurations are stored in the API. And we can also do this like export const products URL will be base URL plus /products, right? And export const cart URL is equal to base URL plus cart. So what we are trying to do is we are trying to provide all the URLs at one single place, and the base URL further is a soft coded one. So pretty much everything would work from one single place only. So this is the whole idea of going for it. And we would change this products URL in our product service. So let's go into the product service first. And instead of this API URL where we have this, we can simply take this out and import products URL from src app src. Oh, so I think I have stored this outside of the app directory. I would like to store it inside actually. That'll be better. So after this, we can go for src slash app slash config slash API. So instead of this API URL, we can go for products URL. And once that is done, we can simply check that. So let's just open up our browser. I hope the compilation and all is done here. Yep, compiled successfully. And let's open up the browser. What we should get, if everything is working correctly, what we should get is a list of products. Yep, and here we have it, a list of products that we have. And add to cart, this is the problem, by the way. Just to reiterate, if I refresh, the cart gets reset. So I would like to go for cart. And by the way, localhost 3000 slash products is our product URL, and slash cart is the cart URL. Cart is an empty array, and we have not loaded that empty array as well. This is just a local variable that is being reset. So this is where we are. Everything is working. We have separated the config file, and api.ts gives you the proper URL. And now what we would like to do is we'd like to go for the model and the services. So let's do that now. So first let's create the cart item model. We already have a product model which contains ID, name, description, price, and image URL. Now with the API integrated, I don't think the constructor is required anymore. So if you want, you can take that off, but I'll just keep it for references. But this is not required anymore. So basically similar cart model would be created right now. So let's create a cart model first. Let me go into the terminal and go for ng generate class models slash go for cart. And let's also refer what does that cart model contain, so that we can also go for the properties for that particular cart class that we created. Inside the components, if I go to the shopping cart and the cart component.ts, you can see that we have actually commented the previous data that was there, which contains an ID, product name, quantity, and price. This is the same structure that we would be going for inside the cart model. Let's do that. So this also tells you that any API call that you do, it is always better to have a model, and that would also make things really easy for us mapping wise. Basically, we can map things easily. So we would go for ID to be a number, and product ID also a number, product title string, quantity would be a number, and price would be a number. And what I also think is we can go for a public constructor, or public not necessary, constructor is public by default. So constructor, this constructor may have an ID and a product passed, right? So cart ID and a product would be passed in, like this dot ID is equal to ID, this dot product ID is equal to, basically this product is a product data type. So I'll keep it as a product data type in here, so that we can basically get the product properties available. And ID would be a number, so I'm also going for that number. Product ID is product dot ID, and this dot product title, product dot title. Was it product title or product name? I think it was product name, I guess. Yep, product name. So I thought product name, the product dot name, and this dot price is equal to product dot price, and quantity is also something that we can pass in qty to be 0 by default. When you provide a default value, you don't need to provide the data type. So this dot qty is equal to qty. Actually, what I think is we can go for quantity equal to 1, because if a cart item is constructed, by default it will be 1. So this is your cart model, and let's go for the cart service. So ng generate service, inside the services folder we'll go for cart, and the cart service would have two methods. What I think of is, one would be definitely add product to cart, and the other would be load or get cart items. So there'll be a get cart items, and which would be basically will be a cart array. So what I think is the naming convention has to be changed. This is not a cart, but this is a cart item, and I'd also rename the file. Since we have not registered it anywhere, this makes it easy for us to rename. Instead of cart.spec.ts, we'd go for cart item.spec.ts. Basically cart item, right? And inside the cart service we'd go for cart item. I don't think it'll auto import. Yep, it does actually, right? Cart item, and get cart items is a function that returns us a cart item array, or get cart item basically calls an API, and an API call would return us an observable, which would be a cart item array. So what it should be is like import observable from rxjs, and this get cart items will not return us cart items, but will return us an observable, which would be cart item array. All right, and this should call the cart URL. They should give a get request to the cart URL so that we get all the cart items, right? So it'll be the HTTP client module again. So import HTTP client from Angular common HTTP, and we do a dependency injection. Private HTTP client, and we would return this dot http dot get cart URL, which we are auto importing. This should give us cart item array. So this is what it should happen. Now remember, we would revisit this particular method because there is a slight modification that we would need to do later down when we get the cart items actually. But right now, before even getting the cart items, there is a need to add a cart item to the cart API itself. Also, this has to be cart item inside the cart.spec.ts and cart item here. So basically, we change that name everywhere, and that's why cart item gets 3 arguments. Well, I actually would comment this out because this is not part of today's discussion. We have this, and get cart items returns this, and then there'll be an add product to cart functionality. You'll take in one product, will be of the data type product. Okay, and add product to cart would return us the currently added cart item, but that is not necessary. So we might just return an observable with the current cart item, maybe, or any. Actually, the thing is, like, we don't need the data in add products to cart, so we are returning an observable with any data type. So we would return this dot http dot post cart URL and product. All right. So what this would do is this would add like eventually this would return us something like this: id is equal to some id and product is equal to the product object. So this is basically what it will return. We'll see once we go for an add product to cart functionality, we'll see that it would return something similar. And just to list out that this is something to be modified, so to do what we would be modifying in this get cart items method is we would be mapping the obtained result to our cart item properties, right? So we'll see what basically that is. We'll see. In that case, we'd use pipe and map functions basically. So let me also note it down. Pipe and map functions would be used in this particular case. So we have this add to cart functionality which we would provide, and what we can do is we can go for the add product to cart functionality right away inside the shopping cart component product list, which is this one. Oh, not product list, actually product item, which is this one. Here we have an handle add to cart method. So the handle add to cart method would be basically going for the add to cart the add product to cart method inside the cart service. So let's import the cart service here. So import cart service from src app services cart.service, and we'd go for a dependency injection private cart service equal to cart service, and here handle add to cart, everything is all set. All we have to do is this dot cart service dot add product to cart, in which I'd go for this dot product item, and once the product is added to the cart on the server side, I would inform the cart component through the send message. So subscribe, and as I said, like, we don't need anything in here, we just need to inform the cart component with this particular product item, send message this dot product item. So later you would see that this product item also is not required to inform the cart component, because cart component once informed, it will load the cart items from the server again. So the cart would be refreshed essentially, but the items would be coming in from the server. So as of now, what we did was we actually are calling an API. Add product to cart has an API call in which takes in the product item, adds that product item to the cart, and once that product item is added, it is sending message to the cart component. And the cart component, if we check out, it is not doing any loading of the cart items from the server right now, but it is just locally storing the cart items in this particular array. So which means the refresh problem would still be there. Like once we refresh, all the data would be reset, but the data would be still available in the API. So that'll be the next step. We would like to basically get the data from the API in the ng-on-init method. All right. So let's first check whether the data is going into the API or not. So let me just go for localhost 3000 cart. As of now, the cart is an empty object, and let me go for an add to cart. You can see that the add to cart is done here, and one more object, that is Rubik's Cube 2. And if I refresh, you can see that this is the product and the ID. So ID 1, 2, 3, 4, the cart items are now being populated. You can see that the Rubik's Cube 2 is repeated. So this repetition is because we added this product to cart at different points in time. So we would like to process this before displaying into the cart. So that is something that we would do as well. But the problem still remains. If I refresh on the front end, all the items would go. That is because it is still a variable in the cart component, while on the back end, the items would still be there. So now our goal is that on refresh, we need to get cart items, and we need to populate this particular cart so that the data would be persistent. So now let's go into the cart item component, or not even the cart item component, the cart component, and let's go for populating the cart. Opening the cart component here. Now you can see that the cart component is a bit messy right now, and I would like to change a lot of things in here. So let me just start by doing this. Handle subscription. And this handle subscription would call in this. And add product to cart. We already have add product to cart in the service. And also this now is not even relevant because add product to cart has to add the product to the API. Moreover, it is also called inside the product item component. So this function itself is now mute. We don't need this function at all. But yes, we need this logic. So we will keep this function for a while. Later, once it is not required, we'll just delete it. Also, this cart total that we are calculating, we would like to calculate it separately. So calculate cart total. And I'll just put this in this dot cart items for each, and I'd go for cart total calculation here. So this dot calculate cart total in here, just keeping things separate. So ng on it would again have this dot handle subscription, where the subscription would be handled. We're keeping things neat essentially. Now add product to cart is not necessary. What is necessary is load cart items. Loading cart items generally requires the cart services get cart items to be called. So let's call that. So we'd go for cart service, right? So we'd go for a dependency injection first. Cart service. And we'd go for something like this dot cart service dot get cart items. Now get cart items, again, it's an observable. So dot subscribe, and we'll get all the items in here, which we can log into the console. And we can also provide a data type, cart item. So this autocomplete, automatically, imports things for me. So I'm not importing it specifically, but once I'm done with this, we'll see what we import. Items is a cart item array, right? This is the data type that we have. And see what all things have we imported: cart service, product, and cart item, and then the messenger service as well, of course. I don't think we need this comment anymore, because now we know that there is a model that defines cart items, and we don't need the comment at all. We have the cart service, we have a handle subscription, we have a load cart item, and I would call this load cart item instead of this add product to cart. I'll just delete this, go for this dot load cart items. So earlier, even before doing that, let me just explain what happened earlier. What we told Angular was listen to this get method or get message method and subscribe to it. And whenever you receive a product, you just update the cart component. So as of now, the get message would be triggered from the product item once the product is added to the cart. And if the product is added to the cart on the server, all we need to do in here is, we don't need to do add product to cart, but all we need to do is just load cart items, and that's it. So we would go for this dot load cart items, like so. And we would also like to go for load cart items on init. So handle subscription, this dot load cart item. So for the first time when your component initializes, we would like to load the cart items as well. And then as and when you receive a message from the set message in the product item, you would also load cart items. So basically you are now relying on your server rather than a variable. That's the whole idea. Which means that this add product to cart would go, but not yet. I would like to just wait for a while before the add product to cart happens. Also, we would like to call this calculate cart total in a while inside load cart item. Let's see how. But before that, we'd go for the console log items. Let's see. Let me just go into the console. And let me go for an add to cart. And now you see that the cart component.ts line number 36, we get the cart items, but the cart items are like this, ID and product, which is not what we are expecting. What we are expecting is something totally different. But the problem statement here is that we want the items as we expect the cart items in here. So the cart service where we are going for get cart items, this has to do something to the result that is obtained before returning the result as an observable. So let's see what we can do. Remember, the core aim is to shape the items as a cart item would be. Right now the items are like this, like product is your list of product properties and the ID. So we don't want it like that. All right, so let's see how things could shape. Let's go into the cart service.ts and let's see how we can go for it in here. So mapping the obtained result into the cart item properties. All right, so now in here, this .http.get cart item, we'd go for a cart URL, and then we'd go for something called pipe. And the pipe method is a method which acts as a filter sort of a thing, where you can have another method in, like for example, import map from rxjs operators. You can have the map method in, which would map your result to your cart item. So basically map, we'd get an item here, and we can do a console log of the item, and we can return the item for a while. What map does is, it would, inside the pipe method, the map method would iterate through each and every cart item that we obtained inside the array, and it'll give that inside this particular item variable. We can do anything with this particular item variable in here, and we can return anything as well, which would be eventually the result of this particular observable. So basically what we would do is, we would formulate a cart item object and we'd return that particular object. We already have a cart item class, and if I do this console log, and let me just get rid of this console log for a while, or maybe let's just keep both of them. So in the cart service, I have done a console log, and remember, this map iterates through each and every item, and each and every item can then be modified and returned like something new. So if I do that, let me do an add to cart here. You can see that here we have this particular item, and here we have in the cart component there is an item. So you can see that there are so many items available which we would like to iterate into. So actually this is not an item, this is the result that we get. That will be a better name. Call it, because this is not an individual item, this is the entire result, and then we can modify the result as a cart item array, and then we can return that particular result. That is the whole idea. So if I refresh, you can see that cart service.ts line number 21 gives you this, and the same thing, because it is returned, cart component.ts also gives you the same thing. Right, so now if we return something else in here, we would get something else inside the cart component. So what are we going to return is a cart item array. And how are we going to construct it? There is a logic already written for us inside the cart item component, add product to cart. All we have to do is, we'd have to just modify certain things here and there, and things would work for us. Let's see, result. We can get rid of this, we can get rid of this, and we can create a cart items array. So let cart items is of the data type cart item array to be starting with a blank array, and we would return cart items. So see here that I have created a cart items array starting with a blank array, and we have returned that blank array. As soon as I do that, this affects things that are returned in. So let me just refresh, and let's see what we get as a result. You can see that it gives you a blank array to start with, and since it's a blank array, nothing gets returned. Like inside the cart component itself, there is no console log that is happening because there's nothing to display. All right, so that is the thing. And let me just close everything else down. We are just focusing on the cart service and the cart component. So now here I'd go for that same logic from the cart component. I think we have already copied it. Let me also copy it once more. So in here, one thing that we should also see here is that we don't have the specific data type for result, so we'll just keep it any array, right? Result is any array, and I'll just put it in the brackets. All right, and then the cart items, and the result is an array, of course. So what we can do is do something like this: for item, for let item in, or for let item of result, and we can loop through that whole result array itself, and the rest can be done here. So in this loop, we see if the product exists or not, and instead of this dot cart items, it will be cart items, and we can just go for this dot cart item, and product dot id, instead of that, it will be item dot product dot id. This item has an id and a product property, and here this would go, even this would go, so this is not required anymore, and item dot product dot id. So cart items dot push. Okay, this is an interesting thing. What we can do is we can do something like this: new cart item, right? So cart item would be item dot id, and what else? The product. So item dot product, and quantity is optional, right? So that's our cart item object that we are creating. So what we are seeing here is almost the same logic that we had inside the cart component.ts when we went for add product to cart. What we are doing here is, before subscribe, we are piping a map function in which we are getting the result in a random sort of a data type from the server, and then we are mapping the result as per our requirement. All right, so that is basically what is happening in this particular case. At the end of this loop, we are returning the cart items, which is our constructed object. So if I check the output now, you can see that inside the cart component.ts, we get 3 cart items: product id 2, and Rubik's cube, and quantity 3, and cart item is this one is having the quantity 2, and so on and so forth. So once we get these cart items in the console log of my cart item component, or sorry, of my cart component, all we can do is we can simply go for something like this: this dot cart items is equal to items. Simply assign cart items, and once the cart items are loaded, all right, what we can do is we can go for a calculate total. How do we do that? Here we go for this dot calculate cart total, because only and only after the assignment of the items is done to the cart items, then we can calculate the cart total. Otherwise it'll just give me 0. So now this is not required because the logic is all taken off, and this whole function now is not required. We can just get rid of that, and you can see that the cart component becomes really lightweight. It was before, it was really heavy and really messy. Now it becomes really simple. So now if I check out my cart, you can see that the cart is now persistent. It's coming in from the API. If I add the Teddy product to the cart, you can see that there will be one more product added. So product 5 named Teddy. And if I refresh, this would still be persistent from the API. So that is happening. So you can see that it's this heavy lifting, or maybe mapping of data, that's basically the main core business logic that is always to be done inside the services. And the service would provide whatever the result that you require to your components anywhere you call it. It could also happen that your server may have some more fields which we want to filter out. Everything can be done through map. And then there is also another method called filter. You can check that map and filter mechanism. But this is the pipe that we have to go for. So essentially, before sending the observable for subscription, what we have done is we have mapped that particular result as per our convenience, as per our Angular shopping cart expectation, and we have sent the cart items there. There will be no changes in the cart component. The cart component would not even know that what is happening basically. It'll just be the service that will be knowing what is happening. So the component becomes really lightweight this time. So this is how we go for the persistence of add to cart. And the next thing that I would like to do is to get the add to wish list functionality created. But think about it. Here, this particular cart is actually something that doesn't belong to any user, because our system doesn't have any user at all. So this whole system is made with an assumption that only one user is using it, and the user doesn't have to log in and all. So if we want to extend this system further, it is always a good idea to get the user login and register functionality in, so that we can associate a cart to a particular user. So that's the food for thought for you. So I would end this video here, but think about that scenario. And in the next video, as the whole sequence is going in, I'll be going for the add to wish list functionality. And that too would be too generic. That would not be specific to a user. But that scenario of having a user selecting his cart or his wish list cannot be ignored. So that is the food for thought for you. And in the next video, we go for add to wish list. Till then, bye-bye. Take care.